Hello. Are you a dreamer? Do you like dreaming? What's more, would you say that you love dreaming? Well, dream lover, there's good news for you. Mariah Carey wants to sheva-reva with you.
Oh my gosh. What is this, a spam email?
This is actually the lyric, dream lover, come rescue me. Yep.
It's based on the Mariah Carey song.
That's what I learned. That's the lesson I learned.
That's weird. Hello and welcome to the 88th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I am joined by my Mariah Carey-loving brother, Rob.
Octagonagmus.
Yes.
88.
Bring it. What's up, man?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was telling you before we started recording, I'm replaying through, I'm playing Myst 4 Revelation for the very first time.
Yeah.
And it is insanely hard. And so I'm looking at the walkthrough, and this is an actual line from the walkthrough. The slider has 4 positions, and you have 5 adjustments before power is transferred from the 34 conductors in front of you. The 4 sliders make the following changes: +7, -3, +10, and +2. It's like, yeah!
Something you're expected to figure this out on yourself.
Yeah. There was one part that was like, oh my god, what is happening? So I've been using a walkthrough. No shame there.
Yeah, there's plenty of shame there, but we've discussed the issue of walkthroughs here before.
Exactly, and I hope to do a Myst retrospective show, and so this is how I'm preparing: is I'm playing the only one I didn't ever play, which is 4. So more to come on that. Yeah. But hey, let's go ahead and jump right into geek news.
Woo!
This week, Rob, what was your favorite geek news story?
My favorite geek news story this week, if you've been following my Twitter, you probably saw that. If you've been following anything, you probably saw that Disney bought Marvel, or how everybody in the world wants to put it, Mickey Mouse bought Spider-Man.
Yeah, I saw a Photoshop of Mickey Mouse and Wolverine together.
Yeah,
and that feels like the obvious reaction. Let's try to raise the conversation up a level.
Okay.
I actually thought this was like a subsidiary of Marvel, but this was legitimately Marvel is owned now by Disney. It was a $4 billion purchase, a lot of cash. But you twittered about the thing I was also interested in, which is the theme park outcome of this.
Yeah, this was something like, all things considered, I'm like, it's business. It's not going to change the face of anything, right? You're still going to have the same artists and writers doing the comic books and everybody else doing everything, just the same way as before. But Universal Studios had a deal with Marvel for their Islands of Adventure theme park. There's the Hulk ride, there's Spider-Man 3D adventure thing. All that is there. So what does that mean as far as like Disney World, which is the competitor with Universal Studios, as far as like, so now they can legitimately have Spider-Man running around, and they're like, woohoo, we're here, we're on, and they can legitimately like either get a cut of Universal's income, or just shut it down, and then Universal has to like rebrand everything with generic City of Heroes characters.
Repaint the Hulk ride.
Exactly.
I think there is a Hulk ride. Am I wrong? I've never been to...
Oh yeah, there's a Hulk ride. The Hulk ride is this roller coaster that like launches you from like 0 to like 1 million in like 1 second. That's like awesome. Regular rides are like going up and up. This one, you're like, you start doing that, and then it's like, nah, screw this. And just shoots you up.
I've been seeing a lot of Lou Ferrigno lately. Speaking of the Hulk, he was on Everybody Loves Raymond, just on like a rerun. Yeah. And then I watched I Love You Man, where he's in there as Lou Ferrigno, and they constantly they're like, don't mess with the Ferrigs, man, and stuff. I'm like, is he back? Maybe just in my life.
I know that he was also on King of Queens as himself. Like,
that's true. Yeah, Lou Ferrigno is apparently Anyway, I'm also convinced the universe really wants me to watch iRobot.
Don't listen to the universe.
Okay, but so that's Disney buying Marvel. The good news to me is that they are going to keep it running, and Marvel will be in a more safe position now. Someone else also pointed out that this is a lot like DC, because DC is actually owned by Time Warner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you might actually see improvements in like Marvel movies, as good as they've been. Iron Man and the recent Hulk and Spider-Man have been really good.
Yeah.
you might actually see like, the distribution monster that is Disney like can really get its paws on this and really make things work, as long as they're willing to have an open ear to what Marvel feels is best. Because listen to them, they've built their fan base for a reason. So
yeah, the immediate cheesy joke that I thought of was, well, now Beauty and the Beast will have the blue beast from X-Men, and then I went on I went on Penny Arcade and they made the exact same joke. Like they made the exact comic of that. It's worth checking out.
There you go.
But probably the worst thing that can happen is like Wolverine in a musical.
That's the worst thing?
There's probably way worse. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe Pixar would take a crack at some. I think that we're actually having the literal reaction. Like, what happens if you mash two companies together? But like, the fact is, now they do own 5,000 Marvel characters. Yeah.
What's more, I mean, there's the possibility here, rather than doing mishmashing or things like that, for an actual like original intellectual property to develop from this merger, like to really be kind of a the creative powers and designed around like having a theme park ride based on it or whatever, and comic book and movie, I'd be interested to see, like, just when somebody, just email me and be like, yo man, this was it, whenever this character right here is the first Disney Marvel co-venture.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
and on the subject of comic book related properties, my favorite news story this week was that Batman Arkham Asylum finally came out.
Zoom,
and that's the sound it made.
Yeah.
And a game that we've been looking forward to for a long time. It was on my most anticipated games of 2009 list. I think it was my most anticipated. And sorry to say that I have not bought it or rented it to play it, but I did play the demo. So did you.
Yeah.
I think it's time to quickly weigh in with what we thought of. This is not a full impression or anything of the game, but what do we think of the demo? It's been getting awesome reviews, I will say.
Yeah, and I will give it an awesome review as well.
Okay.
Here, based on what I played in the demo, was enough for me to go, like, this is actually good,
Metal Gear.
Exactly. it had that level of like Metal Gear quality. I mean, what I didn't expect was the level of stealth that is in this game.
Yeah.
Like, you will die if you're not being Batman. know, if you try and play as Wolverine would just run in, like, kill guys. You think, I'm Batman, I can take it. It's like, no, you can't. Batman doesn't go in directly because he's human, and he has to employ all these kind of detective things. Now, that being said, I love the fact that you can see, like, the emotional state of the guys that you're stalking.
Yeah, nervous or whatever it is.
They were calm at first, then I took out one, Then they were like, oh, I found a guy, what's going on? They're like looking around, and then like I take out another and another, and then eventually it's just two guys who are completely freaked out and like shooting at like the whatever sound.
Yeah, that's a very Batman feeling. Batman Begins really delved into that, which was, a horror movie for criminals.
Yeah.
Hanging upside down on a gargoyle and then grabbing a dude and whipping him back up. That's what the monster does, but instead it's you.
Yeah, completely awesome, and on top of that, the voice actors.
Yes, Mark Hamill doing a little bit of a different take on his Joker, but Kevin Conroy, the girl that plays Harley Quinn, it's a geek dream because animated series characters, and we've talked about that, but they all do a good job. The only thing I thought about the demo that was kind of a negative was it felt a little scripted. It was like, press A to kick vent, then dial this by tapping this, And even the one thing where you sort of swoop down and kick the one particular villain, I can't remember his name, it's sort of like, press X to dive bomb him. And I was thinking, are they going to let me sort of be free and like use my wits? And toward the end of the demo, there's a large open area that lets you do pretty much that. You take all the skills that you learned and you can take to the situation in a number of ways. So yeah, apparently it's awesome. It's definitely out. I wish I had more to say about it, but I didn't want to ignore it. That is a really lame review of
impressions. Yeah, and what do you think? You think you're gonna grab it, rent it?
I really do want to at least rent it. And Giant Bomb just gave it 5 out of 5.
Wow.
So and everybody keeps saying it's very Batman, And I love the stealth when you turn on your stealth vision, which is pretty much how I played the game.
Yeah.
His eyes turn white, and I just love rotating his model toward the camera and looking at White Eyes Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, supposedly very detective-y / action, everything you'd want from a Batman game. So
Sweet.
pretty cool. Real quick, I want to slide in here. The Inception trailer came out. And that is Christopher Nolan's new movie. If you don't know who he is, he directed Memento, The Prestige, Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight. And so Chris Nolan don't make no crap. Same as I said about James Cameron. But sci-fi thing. You got Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page. Most of these actors aren't even seen in the trailer. Michael Caine. So what did you think of the tiny 2-second teaser of Inception?
It was really fascinating. I mean, at first I thought it was the other Leonardo DiCaprio movie that's coming out where he's like at a insane asylum and then he's like, "Am I insane?" type of thing.
No,
but I was like, "Oh wait, no, this
is
is a different movie."
Yeah, I think that's Scorsese's. I can't remember the name of that.
Yeah,
but
that's Scorsese's next movie, and so cool to see Leonardo DiCaprio. I actually dig him as like an actor. He started off as kind of a pretty boy, but he seems to choose some good roles.
I don't like him as an actor, but I enjoy him as a lover.
Yes.
And a piano player.
Yeah, yes. Just what happens in the trailer, the kind of verticality that all of a sudden just starts going, you're like here's stuff to mess with your mind and make you
Pretty
wonder
much.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And then this kind of logo that implies this sort of labyrinth type thing. That's all good.
They're continuously showing a city, and it's sort of rotating, and that's just graphics. And then you see a shot of a glass of water where the water is literally tilting to a 45-degree angle in the glass, but the glass is staying the same. And then you see probably the most talked about shot of the trailer is, and you can't see it on YouTube so well, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt running towards another guy, two guys running towards each other in a hallway, like in a building, getting like thrown up into the ceiling as they're fighting. I feel like the building is turning, or something is happening with rotation or something in this movie. The tagline in there is "Your mind is the crime scene."
Yeah.
So hints of The Matrix, hints of 13th Floor or Dark City or something where there's this alternate kind of reality. All movies that I enjoyed. So go Chris Nolan. Just excited.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see like Chris Nolan, not to say he hasn't gotten a budget before, but this is probably one of the first movies that like it has a budget, but it's not like a spectacle.
Right.
With Batman, it's like, oh well, there'll be explosions and flipping trucks and stuff like that, but it's interesting to see what somebody who kind of is given artistic freedom can do with a big budget. And I think that's kind of this. It's like he's cashing in what he made with Batman to say, all right, this is a risky picture. This isn't going to guarantee billions of seats filled, but I have money to really make it look awesome.
Yeah. Like high concept, but with high budget,
Exactly.
I love that this is his response to everybody's, "What's Batman 3?" And then he's like, Inception, a sci-fi film is Batman 3. I mean, there is no Batman 3 yet, and maybe there won't be from him anyway. So good on ya, Chris Nolan. Good stuff. So now let's move on to our main topic of discussion, which is going to be technology related. The long-rumored Apple tablet.
Yeah.
Yes. This has been rumored for several years now. Ever since the iPhone was announced in 2007, people have been talking about, well, what if they made a big iPhone, huh? Oh, yeah. So now it's at basically the boiling point where virtually everyone, every tech blog, everyone except Apple is confirming this as reality. And why now? Like, why is everybody talking about it now? Two big clues, real quick. Apple took out a patent that described how OS X could be adapted to a touch input. And it's actually pretty hilarious because it includes drawings. But in the drawings, the hands that are using the on-screen keyboard are like troll hands. And I showed it to Amber, and she said, well, engineers aren't very good artists. But I'm like, God, look at these hands. They're like mutated, large-fingered hands. Yeah. So unless it's a patent for hands that you wear while you're doing it, it's pretty funny. But anyway, the hands, the troll hands, are prodding at this tablet, a touch keyboard. and OS 10 basically touch based. And then there was a second patent that was a keyboard-less device, very tablet-like, and certainly that got people guessing. And then a company called Wintech was said to have received the contract for 9.7-inch panels from Apple. So a lot of clues are sort of coming into place, and hence a buttload of ultra-fake Photoshop mock-ups have been pouring out endlessly. None of them are real, supposedly, yet, but that's about what we got to go on. What's your reaction to this just as a concept before we get into what we don't know about it?
Right.
What do you think about that as an idea?
Well, it kind of falls in a weird place.
Right.
If I have a 15-inch MacBook,
right,
and then I have a 3 or 4-inch iPhone,
right,
do I really need something in between that? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And unless the 10-inch thing is going to completely replace the laptop,
right,
I don't see it making much sense. But how can it? Like, a touchscreen interface is good, but by itself, you kind of have to rework a lot. You have to rework how games function. You have to rework how, Word functions. Are we going to switch to on-screen keyboard strictly? I mean, as a preference, I kind of like to feel something.
Right.
So there's that, but other people were saying, okay, well, maybe it's a larger iPhone or a larger iPod Touch.
Right.
But in that case, I'm like, well, does it need to be larger? Do you really want to have to be carrying this around in a mail carrier bag all the time?
Yeah.
Or would you rather have just a little device that fits in your pocket?
Yeah, I think where it fits is probably the biggest question that we don't know. Is this a large iPhone? Because if so, that seems really strange. Like you said, it doesn't go into your pocket. Or is this a MacBook Touch? Is this a new MacBook? To me, that makes the most sense. Like fitting it in the MacBook family.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, it raises whole slews of questions about how you use a computer without a keyboard or without a touchpad or without, Some people have also said that this could be a ebook competitor.
Oh.
What do you think of that idea? Like a color ebook, especially with the long box announcements and things that we've seen about comic books.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But then again, like, $800 for something that's like a unitasker like that, I guess where that falls is also kind of bizarre, because what's the popularity with ebooks already?
Well, and it's not digital ink as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
I mean, people are saying
they
this
would
is
have
LCD.
to have color digital ink, which is difficult technology actually to achieve. They're working on it, but a lot of these netbooks out there, like, they'll be small computers, but they have to have like big butts sticking out with their battery, because everybody needs 6-hour battery life or something like that. They need it to stay on. And if this thing is doing touch screen and vector based graphics like the OS 10 and all this stuff, you're gonna expect some big battery life from it. But if they're trying to keep it slim,
well, there is that thin MacBook, the Air.
The Air, yeah.
I don't know what the deal with that battery-wise is, but I mean, there's a lot obviously we don't know. It's odd that Borders actually on their website is anticipating that this will be some sort of ebook, because they actually have a little survey, and you fill it out and it says, "I'm expecting to buy an iPad." So they're actually already hoping that this is like a book. Maybe it's a combo of all those things.
Yeah.
Like an iPhone in that it's 3G, a MacBook in that it runs OS 10 proper, and a ebook in that it has books available. I mean, you can get Kindle app for your iPhone, but I would much prefer to read something in color on a large screen. And I'm not bothered by LCDs for reading. I know some people are, though. So it's an odd, it's one of those things that as soon as you hear about it, you're like, wow, cool, and then you're like breaking it down and you're like, huh.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is probably something they have in tests in labs.
Right.
They're seeing how it can do it. But I know, like, Steve Jobs is way too much of a perfectionist to leave something like that's kind of just niche-y.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure that this has applications, that he can get out there and he can sell something about this that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on the idea of an on-screen keyboard.
All right.
Typing position, typing on screen. What do you think?
First of all, typing position you want to type and look forward. I guess people always look kind of down at their keyboard, so that's not too bad. I just think that not being able to tactily feel, the buttons being pressed is kind of an issue for me. I want to be able to press down, and if I rest my hands on the keyboard, it doesn't cause interface.
Yeah, I'm wondering how you would pull up said keyboard. Like even if it was just a button push or something, you're going to do that every time that you want the keyboard? Like, that could get kind of monotonous.
Right. Definitely, yeah. I mean, I remember when the tablet PCs came out on Windows end, Compaq had a really cool design, which was it was a touch thing, but then it had just a little keyboard that would slide out, and it would stand up.
Right.
And that, to me, was cool. And that kind of is like what I would hope Apple would do, which is there's a real keyboard that you can just pop out, and it's small, like it just fulfills the requirements of having a keyboard. And then you just tuck it back in when you don't need it.
Yeah. When I looked at this, I actually got really excited because Apple doesn't make too many mistakes in interface like this. And if they say that the keyboard, now I'm not a huge Mac guy, but just go with me on this. Like if they say that the keyboard is done, if it works, it will make your laptop with the keyboard look really lame. You know what I mean? Like if that's what it is.
Do you think that there's a possibility that they're trying to implement voice command into this?
That's a possibility too, although I've always thought that is a kind of naive, like sci-fi sort of sounding thing.
Yeah.
Because you want to be quiet a lot of the time when you're using your computer. I don't want to broadcast out what I'm doing. And if you have a roommate and you're in college and you're like, autoexec.bat, and he's like, shut up. Obviously that's a weird choice to be saying that. But
unless that's the name of your dog.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think that voice is practical for people without handicaps and things.
Right.
The typing position though, like you rest it like on your crotch. Like if you're standing there, like if you're just laying on the couch like screwing around on the internet, like are you holding it in front of your face?
Is there going to be like a hand strap behind this thing to like keep it like propped up on one arm while you're typing one-handed with the other?
A strap that holds it to your face so that you just no. I talked to one like cynical dude at work about this, and he was like, "Well, they're just gonna sell you the accessory, like the Apple leg clamp attachment." And I was like, "That doesn't seem like Apple." But
no, it's not. I mean, I think the iPhone actually comes with a little kickstand. Like it's buried in the box. Most people like overlook it.
I don't know, man.
It's in a weird place for me, and one more point though. Sorry, I just want to make about the typing thing. Wear and tear is not something good on a monitor. Monitors are expensive. Touchscreens even more so. If you're gonna be constantly, tapping away at this thing, and probably some people hitting it harder than they should to really, this W doesn't work. Then next thing you know, they're breaking the thing. And they're, having to pay $300-$400 for each repair.
I don't know, and it might be the kind of thing where we just seem silly later for even being concerned. I imagine you'll do lighter typing, if there's no actual.
If you're a
key
nice
to press
person.
Down. If you're, that's true.
But
that's true. If you're anything like the troll hands in that drawing, you may smash.
I've watched people use the pin pad machine at work. They swipe their card, enter the pin, and they are like. Wham, wham.
Wow.
Because they perceive that, the harder they hit it, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, the keynote for Apple, the next keynote, is actually in a couple days, September 9th. And I think, if anyone knows what 9909 means in the sort of music world, it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
So most people are assuming that this event will just be iTunes Beatles combo. Or maybe some new iPods with cameras. But nobody is really assuming that this tablet device, if it exists, will be at that keynote. So it seems like we'll have to wait till next year to really see. But I figured it was worth just kind of throwing out some thoughts. I'm excited. I don't know. I really, for something like media, like movies and things, to be able to whip through them with your hands and sort of pull them up at ease like that, I kind of like it.
I would sooner have the screen on my laptop become touchscreen.
Yeah.
In addition,
right.
Than have it gutted out and then that put on there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's old thinking, but I'd rather that.
I mean, the practicality must be addressed. And it's, if, like you said, Apple researches all this stuff, so it's not like them to do something so boneheaded. but like all these questions, they'll have to be addressed. How do you freaking look at this thing? Are you staring down at your, are you just, yeah, it's weird.
So my guess is, will it be announced next week? No. Is it existing in some form, like behind closed doors? Like, are these shots real? Probably. I wouldn't doubt Apple is trying this and just seeing if they can get it to work. But they will not announce anything until they have a complete product. That's going from what I know of Steve Jobs and his insanity. Until it's perfect, until it's awesome.
Yeah, and he's rumored to be personally handling this project. So, if the rumors are to be believed, we'll see. Of course, it could all be bullcrap, and we had this just for fun. But, hey, with that out of the way, let's move now to our nostalgic section. Every week we love to reminisce about growing up geek, and this week my mind has totally been on Marvel, thinking about this merger and thinking about comics. And, we were really into Marvel and comics in general, like in the 90s when comics were supposedly terrible. And I figured we could kind of just throw out a few favorites from that time period.
All right.
So I know you were into Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I was. I don't know why. I think I just liked how he looked,
Yeah. Looks
and
awesome.
I always kind of, I always kind of favored the third party,
Yeah, you like Donatello.
Being the third child, perhaps.
We Matt and I took all the good ones. And you're like, well, Silver
and I was just like, well, I guess I'll get this guy.
Yeah, but no, I specifically remember you had a Silver Surfer that showed his father committing suicide.
Yeah.
Listeners will have to help us out here with like exactly what issue, but yeah. And then the Thanos stuff.
Yeah, the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
I had a special edition with like the shiny glove on the front and everything. Like,
right.
That was pretty cool, and that was pretty crazy. Like, as far as just a mass war. With Silver Surfer kind of at the middle.
I remember Vision, the one guy who's like an android, sort of, on the Avengers. He got his like guts ripped out through his chest, which were like cybernetic guts. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. Everybody was dying.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where they had an out. They could push it as far. They could kill major characters off because as soon as somebody wins the Infinity Gauntlet back, they're gonna be like, I wish everything was better, and then it is.
Yeah. And one of our uncles went out at one point with Dad, like without us knowing, went down to Gotham City, which was our local comic store, and bought us each like a particularly old issue of a certain comic. And I think he bought you like a Detective Comics or a Batman.
Yeah, it was Detective Comics with Batman in it.
I mean, that's actually not a Marvel property, I realized.
No.
But yeah, no, I think that actually had like the Phantasm dude. From Mask of the Phantasm, didn't it? Or something like it.
Probably was based on it, if in any way, because I imagine the guys who did the Batman animated series are huge Batman fans. Like, they really know their stuff, so the character in this was very similar, but it wasn't the same backstory or anything like that.
Yeah. Getting back to Marvel, I was really into Rob Liefeld, mostly because I loved his art.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's his... People always criticize him, and I'll defend him. I mean, that was one reason I got really, really back into drawing and back into just comics in general was his art. The stuff he did on New Mutants, toward the end of New Mutants, especially, issue 100 where Strife takes off his mask and it's Cable underneath. And then I was like, holy crap, to be continued in X-Force #1. And then X-Force as a run all the way up through maybe the 13th or 14th issue, whatever, when he stopped drawing. I checked out all of that, and this is right around the time when all those artists left Marvel for Image, and I sort of followed them. But I do remember, the early X-Force stuff, the 2-page spread with Shatterstar jamming his double-bladed sword through that dude, through his back. I remember early Deadpool stuff.
Yeah,
and a lot of Cable. I think you were a big fan of Cable too.
Well, I was more of a fan of Bishop, who was his hunter.
Is Bishop still sporting the Jerry curl? Do we know?
It's probably on and off. I bet if anybody were doing a revision, that's probably the first thing to go.
Yeah, I'm sure his hair probably got chopped a while ago because that was pretty dated. But there's a big Marvel retrospective that talks about that era, and the chapter is called Flash Over Substance or something like that, Style Over Substance. And in retrospect, that kind of was that time period. All the weird anti-hero type characters like Spawn were sort of taking their place, and it was really driving old school guys nuts. Guys who really liked the old superheroes who stood for something good.
Right. The Max, constantly flipping the bird.
Amber's brother actually made a puppet of the Max and gave it to our nephew. I think he somewhat censored the hands.
Did he slice his hands on the teeth that are sticking out?
Yeah, the teeth are huge too, and it's kind of hairy, and so it's actually pretty good.
I think we spent a lot of calories on playing X-Men together.
Yes.
Matt was Wolverine. He had the Wolverine mask, and they got the claws for Christmas that were all rounded at the edge so you couldn't cut yourself.
Yeah. Oh, you mean playing in real life? I was like, you mean the arcade game?
No, that thing's fun too.
Gosh, that huge solid hand
exactly.
that you would strap on with the giant claws. Yeah.
And you'd push a button and they'd come out, but they're very safe. Then I had the Cyclops thing that you had to push a button, but it's always running out of batteries. But it flashed the red. And then you had Magneto, didn't you? And you were Magneto.
Oh my God, you're right. That helmet only fits for a portion of a child's life. For his face, literally, it hurts to put that, because they're hard helmets. Didn't your Cyclops go optic blast fire or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
It had to say that for you?
Well, yeah, because I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
And then we would always just be acting like a couch is a cliff. And just kind of no, I'm going to fall. No, you're going to fall. No, who's going to fall? I don't know.
Ow, my mask is killing me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
we were allowed to shoot animals and trees.
We weren't allowed to beat up girls in Street Fighter.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Gosh. So if you grew up geek like us and you have any memories you would like to share, you can send us an email. Our website is found at growing-up-geek.com. And you can click on the email link there. Also, you can follow Rob throughout the week on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGRob. I think that's going to do it for this week. Once again, my name is Brad.
I'm Wolverine, and I'm from Australia.
Oh, you remember that.
I do.